Asterisk. Say that 3 times fast. This has got to be probably my favorite topic in linguistics. Like, it is the coolest thing. It's rebuilding a dead language, finding out how people spoke and how they lived thousands of years ago, based on clues that we use in our everyday speech. But before I get into Proto-Indo-European, I'm going to tell you a little bit about how we discovered it. In linguistics, there's this process called the comparative method, where you compare different languages to find the common elements between them. These common elements can be used to recreate an ancestor language, which is called the proto-language. So for example, you have the Spanish word for man, which is hombre, and then the French word for man is homme. So using the comparative method and finding the common elements, you can reasonably assume that the ancestor language to these two had at least HOM. And as we know from written evidence, Latin, the ancestor of these two languages, did in fact use HOM. This method of working backwards has been used for all the languages in the world to determine where they came from. So using this method with more and more languages, people found common links between most of the languages in Europe and a lot of the languages in India. And they creatively called this ancestor language Proto-Indo-European. According to the most dominant theory, which is called the Kurgan hypothesis, this language was spoken around the Pontic steppe, which is now modern-day Russia and Ukraine. And over thousands of years, these people spread out across the continent. People in different areas started to develop their own language quirks, which became different dialects, which are now today different languages. One of the coolest things about this is that you can actually see similarities in modern languages today, especially in very basic words like numbers and body parts. For example, the German word for eye is auge. In Armenian, you have achk, Lithuanian akis, in Hindi, you have akshi, and in Latin, you have oculus. If you ever get into historical linguistics and you see an asterisk by a word, it means that it's not attested. There's no proof that it existed, but this is our best guess based on the data that we have. Some people have even tried to pronounce Proto-Indo-European based on these reconstructions.
Hois hekoipios weogid. De gemonum spekio hekomsque hageti kermoi agnutor. Hekos tu weogund. But
the thing is that none of this can really be proven. There's no proof that Indo-European existed because it was never written. But it's our best guess based on the language data and archaeological data that we have. And even today, there are major disagreements with how the languages and families have been reconstructed. But probably the coolest thing about this process is that we can even reconstruct the culture of these people. Just from the words that have been reconstructed, we can see what they valued and how they lived. For example, we know that the Indo-Europeans had a pantheon of gods ruled by the Sky Father, whose name was Deus Pater. In Greek, Deus became Zeus, in Sanskrit this became Dios Pita, and in Latin it became Jupiter. We knew that the Indo-Europeans domesticated animals and that the number of cows they had determined how wealthy they were. The reconstructed word for cow is peku, which became fehu in Old English and is now fi. The Indo-Europeans revered their horses, and that's probably one of the reasons that they spread across the continent so quickly. We also know that they raised sheep and they knew how to weave clothing. We also know that they knew how to farm and they knew how to make alcoholic beverages. The culture also had the concept of reciprocality. There's the word gosti, which comes to us as guest from Old English and host from French, which means stranger. A guest staying with a host was expected to host in return at some point in the future. And this extended into gift giving as well. So if you received a gift, you were expected to give something back. The Indo-Europeans thought of themselves as people of the earth, which is where we get the term human and man from. One of the most popular stories that Indo-Europeans told was the concept of the warrior versus the serpent. This developed into the stories of Hercules and the Hydra and Perseus and the Gorgon. And in Old English, this became the story of Beowulf versus the dragon. And the major underlying theme for all of these stories was undying fame for the hero. We're still finding out the mysteries of the Indo-Europeans as we find more archaeological evidence and more linguistic data. Some people are even trying to go beyond Indo-European and trying to reconstruct the original human language, if such a thing existed. But the thing with language is that it can change so rapidly, and the farther back you go in your reconstructions, the less reliable they're going to be. So my question to you all is, what do you think your language and culture are going to look 5,000 years from now? Are you beginning to see any major changes that you think are going to lead to new dialects or new languages? If so, you can leave a comment below and let me know. If you enjoyed this video and you'd like to see more from me, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel, and I will see you all next time. Bye!